Enter your credit card details. Which button feels safer to press? Exactly. That feeling? That's the trick. Welcome to the secret psychological trick behind the blue button, because that small, harmless-looking blue button is doing more work on your brain than you think.
Okay, let's get right into it. I want you to just think for a second about the last time you were online, the very last button you clicked. Maybe it was to log in or send a message, maybe buy something.
Now, really try to picture it. What color was that button? Because, I have a pretty strong feeling I already know the answer.
I'm willing to bet it was blue. And let me tell you, that is no accident. It's a calculated choice. It's a key piece of the subtle, silent psychology that shapes our entire digital world.
To really get why, we have to start with this psychology of calm, because that's the absolute foundation of trust. And the secret to that, well, it lies in some powerful associations our brains have been making for thousands and thousands of years.
It's actually a surprisingly simple idea. For as long as we've existed, the two most constant, reassuring sights in nature have been the sky above us and the water in the distance. And what do they have in common? They're both blue. So our brains learned deep down to connect that color with calmness, with safety, and with stability.
And that is the core of color psychology. Designers use these learned associations as a kind of subconscious shortcut. When they want to send a message of safety, of reliability, they don't have to spell it out. They just use blue.
You can think of it like this. Blue is a quiet color. It doesn't create alarm or a sense of urgency. It's a color that doesn't shout, it whispers. You can trust me. And that subtle approach, well, it's absolutely perfect for lowering a user's guard and building that crucial foundation of trust.
Okay, so that's the theory. But how does this actually play out in the real world? Well, the biggest tech companies on the planet, the ones whose entire businesses rely on us trusting them, they've built their platforms on this exact principle.
Just look at the giants. Facebook, where you share your personal life, uses blue to create a feeling of safety and reliability. LinkedIn, which manages your professional identity, uses blue to signal competence and stability. And PayPal, which handles your money, uses blue to bring a sense of security and calm to what could be a really stressful transaction. See the pattern? They're all using the very same psychological tool.
They've all figured out that a quiet, confident nudge is way more effective for building a long-term relationship with you than some aggressive, demanding shove. And blue is the color of that nudge.
But wait a second. If the goal is just to get you to click, why not use a color that really screams for attention? Why not a loud red or a vibrant green? Well, this is where the strategy gets even more interesting.
Red is the color of urgency, of alarm, of error. It creates stress. It's fantastic for a buy now button on a flash sale, but it's terrible for building trust. And green is the color of go, of success. But it's so often paired with red to show status, which creates a huge accessibility issue for anyone with red-green color blindness.
Now, you may have heard about that famous test from HubSpot, the one where a red button actually outperformed a green one by a whopping 21%. Sounds pretty definitive, right?
But context is everything. The only reason the red button won is because it stood out on a page that was already dominated by green. It wasn't about some inherent power of the color red, it was simply about visual contrast.
So it all really boils down to this one simple idea. Red pushes, green confirms, blue invites. It's a low-pressure invitation, which is precisely what you need for any action that is based on trust.
And look, this isn't just some vague feeling or an artsy choice by a designer. The preference for blue is actually backed by very practical, data-driven decisions that are all about creating the smoothest possible experience for you, the user. When you look at the data, it's clear blue's calming effect actually reduces what's called decision anxiety, that little bit of hesitation we all feel before a click. It also just works better visually, keeping high contrast on both light and dark backgrounds. It's way more accessible for users with color blindness. And maybe most importantly, its meaning of trust and professionalism is incredibly consistent across different cultures, which makes it a really safe bet for global companies.
At the end of the day, the goal of good design isn't just to look pretty, it's to reduce friction. And blue is chosen over and over again because it is simply the most effective color for making our digital lives feel safer, easier, and more seamless.
So, we started with just a simple blue button, and it's led us right into the very heart of digital psychology. But now you're in on the secret.
And having this knowledge, it gives you a powerful new perspective.
So you see, the blue button isn't good or evil. It's not some trick to be angry about. It's just a very, very effective tool, designed to make our online world smoother by quietly, carefully negotiating for our trust.
And this brings us to the real shift here. Just a few minutes ago, you were a user being guided through a system. But now you are an observer who understands the rules of the game. The next time you see that calming blue button, you'll see it with new eyes. You'll recognize the deliberate, silent persuasion that's at work. And in a world that is constantly designed to influence you, that knowledge is power.